Well, I'm here to talk a little bit with Steve about his goals, his thoughts, who he is. And it means a lot to me being from Seaside, because Seaside has been so underrepresented over the years, kind of like the stepchild, of the county.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, people who cared more about other things, I think, and they were good people, and just they had other priorities.
Oh, sure.
I have no idea your political leanings. You have never said, I'm a this or I'm a that. What you have told me is you want to make Monterey County a better place. That's why I'm here.
Sure.
And I believe that the other candidates all want to do good.
Yep.
I don't think they have the gravitas. I really don't. I don't think they have the experience. One may have the experience, but not in the right direction, I think. But
Thank you.
I won't go names, but I mean that's my feeling.
Beyond that, I spend a lot of time with my dad. Every year we go on a trip. We go someplace where my sisters and my mom wouldn't want to go, which has led to some great adventures together. We've done that for 25 years.
Wow.
Really, community is where my heart is, and a move to run for county supervisor, really requires you to make a lot of big decisions when it comes to family and business. Sure. and sacrifice. And I've shown that in my public service, and I'm ready to serve the greater Monterey County, including Seaside, Marina, Sand City, Delray Oaks, and Salinas. I
like that. Yeah. What about your childhood? You say you grew up in Cupertino. What type of things did you do? Were you an entrepreneur or anything? Or
I've got lots of funny childhood stories. I did landscaping as a kid. I mowed lots of lawns, swept.
35 cents,
right?
50 cents. Yeah.
My parents, both being small business owners, I raised kind of this idea that I was on my own. Either they were working or more than anything, they instilled in me the idea that I determined my future, not someone else.
Okay.
They instilled in me that hard work is rewarded. And I found that out at a very early age that just drove me to always do more. I was influenced a lot by my best friend and his dad. His dad was mayor of Cupertino.
Okay.
At a time when the internet was kind of emerging and computers were emerging. It was the 80s. And so if I wasn't cutting grass or working at my mom's business, I was spending time with him. He taught me how to blow bubbles and tie my shoes.
Right.
I had a paper route with my best friend. We earned money that way. But really, that idea of public service started early. My best friend and I, both of us, were in student government starting in the second grade. Boy Scouts, soccer. Our town was relatively safe. It was emerging. You still saw in the Santa Clara Valley evidence of agriculture. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was an apricot orchard down at the bottom of our street. So we would get up in the trees, June, and eat apricots and throw them at one another. It was a good place to grow up. I would say, as you had shared with, the ideas of raising a kid, there's so many things you can learn. Optimism, I think, is important. I was instilled that by my parents. Hard work and love a community.
Absolutely.
I believe that the region deserves better. I don't want to say anything disparaging of anybody that seeks or is served in elected office, but there are definitely areas that have been missed. Housing and jobs have gotten worse, not better. I see myself as a balanced planner, someone that looks to sustainable growth, and we need that in Monterey County.
Absolutely.
We need to balance the environment with the right jobs and the right housing mix in the right spots. The unique thing about a county supervisor is they can connect dots between Marina and Salinas and Seaside and Sand City. And that's the role that I'm best at in life. Whether it's as part of Monterey Bay Community Power, or whether it's part of the Air District that I chair, these various boards have given me tremendous opportunity to demonstrate working together and connecting people and resources for the betterment of the region. So as a supervisor, I seen areas where more leadership's needed. Some of that plays in Fort Ord. A tremendous amount of that plays in Seaside. We've talked a bit about that, where Seaside has lacked the representation, has lacked the steps forward. And I'm committed to investing the time and doing more.
I think that's so keen. Wherever I go, I tell people what a wonderful place Seaside is, or the Monterey Peninsula, Pacific Grove, the whole area.
The area, for sure.
Just came back from a long trip. I was gone for the better part of a month, and I came back, and I'm just still blown away of the beauty of Monterey County. Yeah. What about somebody said something about you may have had a lemonade stand as a child, and actually I'm glad. It's actually too bad that I didn't run into you when you were, because when I see kids with lemonade stands today, if these little kids, I'll pull over and give them $5 or $10 and say,
sure,
no thanks. You keep the lemonade.
Yeah.
If it was you, it would have saved me $10. I would have just said, nah, not that guy.
Entrepreneurship is so important. I have started 5 different businesses, and I currently own and operate 2. And I really believe that at a young age, at the middle school level, the high school level, we can start what is an ecosystem of entrepreneurship, empowering young people to think larger than themselves, to solve problems. I always tell people that more than 50% of the groundbreaking inventions in the last 100 years were made possible by people under 25. Right. I mean, it's a true fact. Yeah. So those younger years where you have nothing to lose are something magical, and we have CSUMB right in our backyard. The city of Seaside has committed to investing in Broadway. We have our economic development department there. There's tremendous opportunity from a maker space to really capture students from MPC, from CSUMB, and put them to work in their creative ideas and problem solving. Ag technology has been an area for me that's a passion, because it can't just be harvesting crops or sowing seeds. They've been doing that for thousands of years. It's got to be more advanced than that. Robotics, precision application of water and amendments, not to mention remote sensing and the use of computers. There's so much opportunity in a problem-solving arena there, not to mention people coming out of CSUMB that we can capture the best and brightest.
Right.
It's
if
challenging.
We can keep them.
If we can keep them, Dave. There's so many people that have left the region. Consistently, I talk to people on Military Ave or in Marina. More people than not have had family members leave because they can't find work, they can't afford housing. We need to reverse that to really keep us on the growth and on the positive investment to our communities.
A lot of energy. What really motivates you? What gets you up and running?
Sure. I'll tell you, ever since I was a young boy, I always had a lot of energy. I've managed to get a lot of things done and manage many things at once without too much stress. Sometimes, as with any human being, it boils over here or there. I've always made lists. I keep very precise goals, knowing that I'm not going to get to them all, but I'm certainly going to die trying, so to speak. I keep them in my wallet. I share my goals with other people. I'm always thinking about people. I'm a people person. I gain my energy by working with people, and a true extrovert, whereas there's a lot of people that gain their energy from, finding other more private and introspective ways of the world. I really see the best in people and situations as an optimist. I look for possibilities and problem solving. Really more than anything, I think of people that have influenced me. My mother. My mother was a role model for me. She came across the Atlantic on a steamship following World War II as a displaced person. She, her sisters, her brother, and ultimately her mom, her father came later, landed in Stillwater, Oklahoma, with nothing. Her parents cleaned toilets and, well, before long were discovered as having engineering degrees, passed state and even federal exams so that they could work on the federal highway project under Eisenhower. And my mom managed to study mathematics and, before getting into business for herself, worked for Texas Instruments. Just a tremendous inspiration. She always saw the best in every situation. I mean, I've seen her under a lot of difficulty, and she managed to always come out on top. And that was a skill, an optimism, a way of looking at the world that I was really lucky to be exposed to.
Wow. Another question I have is, what makes it hard for me to see you pushing forward in this arena is the fact that over the 8 or 10 years that I've followed, what you did, you have never taken the path of least resistance. You've always done what you thought was right, and even if it crossed somebody, it wasn't always the most popular thing.
Sure.
And that seems like it's difficult, because when you do that, it could wear you down.
Yeah.
And what gets you through that?
Sure. In politics, and certainly in community service, and really in any capacity, people are not always going to be happy with what you do or what you say. You have to have a good moral compass. My faith is real important to me. I wear it on my sleeve. And I'd like to see that I always see the best in people, and that helps. I give folks the benefit of the doubt. The way I was brought up was to never be a bully, but to stand up when I saw the right opportunity, and more importantly, what was right. So certainly regionally, I would love to use PG&E as an example. We, as a group, have stood up to PG&E as we established Monterey Bay Community Power, and that's been tremendously successful. I was on the startup team. I'm vice chair. I'm on the risk advisory committee. I mean, there's tremendous investment of time, and it's really, really worked. That's one example that comes to mind. Another is I serve on the Marine Sanctuary Board. Good. And consistently we're having to take difficult positions in protection of our marine resources, our beaches. Not always popular, sure, but what's right. And that's just a value I've always held near and dear.
Is there something that can be done at the supervisor level, or the county level, to help break that lock?
When I look at our county government, I see a litany of crisis, whether it's healthcare, right, our jail and public safety, water, land use, everything's governed by crisis. Leon Panetta recently was at an event I was at. I was speaking with him, and he had said, what we need is leadership. Leadership is unique because a good leader connects the dots and yes, averts the crisis, is proactive. And it takes tremendous time, patience, listening to the various parties that are often at opposite ends of the spectrum. Sure. I've been to countless Land Watch meetings, and I've been to countless meetings that are either public or as part of organizations that sit on the other end of that, that just really want to see the progress that, say, environmentalists have stifled. And the reality of it is we all are in this same boat together. Sure. And someone that's tremendously hardworking, has the right communication skills, whether it's written or spoken, to get everybody together at the table and come about to the best resolution possible. I know that that's a very optimistic and high-level way of looking at this, but water, housing, jobs, whatever the issue, I really believe we have the right people and the right resources. Okay. It's true that environmentalists have used water as a way to contain growth. And I believe that if everybody's at the table, there is the opportunity for sustained growth in a manner that does take into account social justice, that does take into account what is ultimately a brain drain, a generation or more that's leaving the region because they can't afford to stay here. They can't afford to live here. That's really where I see the need.
Okay, I like that. Now, back to Seaside. I mean, Seaside's my
sure. Yeah.
biggest focus. You're a great member of the Seaside Rotary Club.
Sure.
What do you think we can do with service clubs to help push things in a forward direction? Can service clubs, other than just do the feeding the hungry or giving scholarships, is there something else we can do?
We need to get more people involved in government. There's no doubt about it. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but most people, their only engagement with, say, the city or the county is maybe a parking ticket, right? Or if they have to go through getting a permit for something or another. And the reality is, the more people that are engaged, the stronger the outcome. As a councilman for 10 years, I've hosted dozens of community meetings. As a candidate for supervisor, I've had dozens of coffees and events that get people together. As a supervisor, I will continue that trend. I want to be transparent. I want to be engaging. My intention is not to have the office for the county supervisor buried amongst trees and old barracks out in Fort Ord. I will bring it to downtown Seaside. I will hire locally and get people engaged in county government. And by doing that, I truly believe the outcome will be better. That includes service organizations, that includes nonprofits, and it includes the business community.
Do you work well with our local officials now? Do you meet with them? Are you familiar with the Seaside City Council and mayor?
I'm proud to say that as a county supervisor, I have a running start going. Certainly in the city of Seaside, I sit on boards with 2 council members and the mayor right now.
Oh, really?
So 3 of the 5 I'm working with on a regular basis. I have a first name relationship with everybody that's elected in Seaside and quite a few of the commissioners and board members serving the city. As a Seaside Rotarian, I've been engaged with the business community, certainly the faith community in Seaside. I feel ready to get to work on behalf of the city of Seaside and make something happen.
Seaside still has a large contingent of veterans. Granted, they're getting older, but is there more that we can do for veterans? I know there's still veterans that are on the streets, but we still have a lot of veterans that could use services. Is there something that as a supervisor you could do to promote that?
I'm the veterans candidate. I have a tremendous track record of having worked with veterans, going back 20 years when we were just getting the Veterans Cemetery off the ground. I was an early supporter of that, coordinated meetings and efforts to get the state funding and support in place to make the cemetery happen. I've been to countless veterans events. Every year I've supported the County Veterans Day Parade, and I'm proud to say that I have support from veterans leadership like Jack Stewart and James Bogan and Sid Williams. The importance of our region is truly still based on defense and, the DMDC, the DLI, the Naval Postgraduate School, and even throughout the county when you take into consider Fort Hunter Liggett and some of the other military resources, including Fleet Numerical.
Right.
I really, as a supervisor, see my role as important in preserving, protecting, and enhancing the role of the military in our local economy.
There have been reports that the government was considering pulling out of the Defense Language Institute or even Fleet Numerical.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is still talked about or not. And another thing is, what about Fort Ord? What about the old Fort Ord? We still have so many old, terrible looking buildings that are, eyesores, and they're right along the highway. Is there something that can? I know that's I guess a FORA issue, but
the current administration has failed when it comes to Fort Ord. there are still 500 plus dilapidated, lead-based and asbestos-based buildings left within the county's sphere of influence. Seaside and Marina still struggle when it comes to conveyance. And it's a lot of finger pointing, quite frankly, but the supervisor is in the driver's seat when it comes to resolving those regional indifferences. As a supervisor, I'm going to prioritize housing, jobs, and opportunity in Fort Ord. Think about this. Just 25 years ago, there were over 20,000 full-time benefited personnel working at the Fort Ord.
With families, 33,000.
With families, even more, exactly.
Right.
Today, it's less than 5,000. In fact, I hear it's closer to 4,000. So there's definitely a missed opportunity there, a promise that hasn't been fulfilled. Now, I'm not saying pave the place over. Definitely not. I mean, nature and working within the environmental respect that we want, the environmental preservation, develop those areas that have been earmarked, that have water, that have that opportunity, to link the right resources to move Fort Ord and the region forward.
Well, with 33,000, the number I saw quite a few years ago, people between families and employees and military that were on Fort Ord, and now we have, we have more than 4,000 because of the Marina area. But it seems like we always had water for all those people. And I know that the agriculture industry has done a lot better. They've worked very hard at being more water wise.
Sure.
But is there water? Is it more of just a fear?
I believe water in the peninsula and throughout the county is a management issue more than it is a resource issue. Okay. I see the opportunity. Now, when you think of the big picture, I'll start by saying I am a fan of pure water, water recycling, water reuse, water conservation, and we've conserved a lot. Right. The reality of it is, at some point, we will have to take into consider desalinization.
No doubt.
Now, I've been one of the folks out there that has shared concern over Cal-Am, due largely to their reputation with the Carmel River and other sources of concern. You know, long-term desalinization will be part of that picture. And that's part of the reason why the Salinas City Council has engaged in an MOU to develop desal in Moss Landing. You know, there is going to be a desal solution at some point. In the meantime, when we look at the county and we look at the role that the Valley can and is playing, the city of Salinas on a daily basis is sending 2 million gallons to the peninsula to be treated and to be injected and reused. So those sorts of collaborative solutions are what I'm going to continue to work on as a supervisor. I've helped to broker them as a council member, and I believe water is possible on the peninsula and will continue to be possible by working together rather than at odds with one another.
Sounds good. Back to the seaside just for one moment.
Yeah.
Years ago, Fort Ord closed. Since then, Marina has grown just leaps and bounds.
Sure.
And Seaside is still just treading water.
Yep.
Is this a Seaside issue, a Marina issue, a county issue, or is it a water issue, or is it leadership, or a combination of all? Or, I mean, I feel real bad. I think we in Seaside need economic development for our survival.
Sure. Yeah.
There will be a day when the government says no more grants, no more federal money, or less. I would imagine. I mean, we can't. We're spending money like our printing presses are.
Sure.
You know, there will have to be a time when here we just passed a $1.4 trillion budget,
Yeah.
and they had that budget for 24 hours and passed it. 2,000 plus pages that nobody read. And so, I mean, so eventually, you know, the well runs dry.
Sure.
So we do need economic development, and I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm a small business owner. I'm a small business owner. I'm a partner in two different businesses, an organic fertilizer company that works in recycling of food waste and use of fish waste for an organic product that's distributed all over North America, and a landscape supply that helps to beautify people's yards. But as an entrepreneur, I've invested a lot in ag tech. I want to help bring the county into the arena of economic development by working with the various cities, connecting those dots amongst one or another city. I will say, specific to Seaside, projects like the Main Gate project in Campus Town, they've been held up, in my opinion, by a lack of urgency on the part of the county supervisor and really the regional authority, which is the Monterey County. Yeah. There needs to be that urgency on job development and on housing development. And I'm ready to do that.
Good. Well, okay, back to you. What about hobbies, or what do you do when you're not doing the 26-hour-a-day charge?
Well, I love getting out, hiking, seeing the wild. I travel quite a bit, and I garden. I'm an exotic fruit grower, if you'd believe it.
Oh, really?
Founder and past chair of the Central Coast chapter of the California Rare Fruit Growers. So in my yard, I've got Malaysian guava and passion fruit, cherimoya, even a babaco papaya. So growing and gardening and getting my hands dirty, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, it's fulfilling. It keeps me connected to dirt, to the earth. It's a fulfilling hobby and a passion.
All right, something a little more serious. Sure. What about your politics? Or do you care not to bring your own personal politics into something that I think should be probably a non-political
Sure.
arena? I mean,
Yep.
that's, and I think I mentioned that earlier. I'd hate to see somebody, charge on the idea that I'm a this or I'm a that.
Yep.
Because that would tell me that that's where your decisions are going to go.
Yep. The Office of County Supervisor is a nonpartisan office, and I think that's important to keep it that way.
Right.
I'm not endorsed by any political party. Other people running are. I mean, really, it's important to note that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd consider myself an independent. I'm a registered Democrat. I am center of the road. My politics and my years of public service really show that. That I'll stand up to say the chamber in pushing for styrofoam ban or recycling and planting of trees, or more importantly, when it comes to people over politics, that's always been a hallmark of my belief. Listening to everybody, making sure that everybody's included, every opinion is part of the outcome of what's best for the community. It's a skill and a patience that I think I've demonstrated. The County of Monterey doesn't need any more politics. It needs people that are going to make the right decision for the most people that are impacted. And that's going to be me. I'm a moderate, and I'm proud of it. It pisses some people off on one side or another side of the spectrum. But in the end, it's what the region needs. Independence and a willingness to stand up for what's right.
I like that. Yeah. I'm a Republican that feels the same way. I'm kind of middle of the road.
Sure, sure.
I've voted for Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, and I want somebody who's going to be thinking on their own, not just say, tell me where to vote, what to vote, who to vote for,
Sure.
and I'm there. Anyway, what about issues like our housing shortage and homeless issues? What do you feel about that?
Housing is by far the biggest challenge that faces Monterey County, especially Seaside and Marina. I mean, the whole area, really. And when I think about housing, I think of the role the county can play. First of all, the county runs the housing authority. There's a lot of public housing responsibility that falls within the county. I point to agricultural housing, particularly H-2A, visiting workforce, employees that end up in cities taking up residency that could be available to local workers. So organized housing units on the part of agricultural employers goes a long way. Let's take that a step further. See, the county has a lot of levers in the form of fees and various regulatory oversight that could incentivize housing development on the part of major employers. You know, I think of major employers that could invest in housing, whether it's rental or whether it's ultimately a path to home ownership, that adds a perk to working in the region for a major employer. Even school districts, the county, various municipal arms of the government could aid in that role to help house their employees. I also believe that we could explore more co-living situations. For young people just coming out of college, it's enough to rent a room and live in a shared space. There's qualified ways to put people in a safe environment so that they're housed. And there's examples of this, particularly to the north in Silicon Valley. We need to do more, and the county supervisor can play a leadership role in incentivizing and bringing to bear solutions that work on a regional basis when it comes to housing.
I think that on the Monterey Peninsula, that is so vital. When you look at the traffic coming in and out of Monterey, or in the Monterey Peninsula, and I know that in Salinas, one of the big ag firms built housing for their employees in Spreckles.
Yeah.
And I asked how that would, and they think it's a great thing. Granted, they don't own the property, but then maybe later on, I mean, maybe into like Pebble Beach people. Yeah. What about inclusionary housing? Where they've done that, they did it at Pasadena, where there was inclusionary homes that were, even though there wasn't a lot, there were some that were sold for a tremendous number less than the homes that were there in Pasadena. Yeah. Also, on Olmsted Road, going up on the opposite way of the airport, there's a great bunch of inclusionary homes. That it got people that couldn't have afforded a home to actually buy a home in a nice area. There were restrictions, of course. You couldn't buy it and sell it for a profit, but or a big profit until I don't know if it was 5 or 10 or 20 years, whatever it was. But things like that, we need to do something with the traffic, and maybe something like inclusionary homes. Pebble Beach has so many employees. But of course, that's not. I mean, even though they're a large employer, they're not the cause of all of the problems on the roads. But
I believe that people want a supervisor that has demonstrated evidence when it comes to solving the housing issue. And I've got more than anybody else running. I'll point to a couple of things. First and foremost, I've played a leadership role in the future growth area of the Salinas. We're talking about thousands of units with the most aggressive inclusionary housing ordinance put to work when it comes to various levels of inclusionary units. Extremely low, very low income, workforce housing, not just rental units, but pathways to ownership so that we're taking care of our local housing population. I really believe in the idea that the county can take good examples and put them to work. City-centered growth, transit-oriented, thinking that we're going to need to go up. And not talking about large, huge single-family homes with 3,000 or 4,000 square feet, but more modest units that can allow people that maybe don't have that budget to live here and work here. I'm a candidate with results, and I'm ready to get to work on the housing issue.
Big issue. As you said, one of the biggest issues facing us.
I'm very proud of this idea that we can do transit-oriented housing. I actually sit on a board called the California Van Pool Authority. We have nearly 1,000 vans in service throughout a 14-county region where we help get people to work in a cooperative fashion. Many employers help to pay for these van pools. I believe on a regional level, and certainly at the county level, we can set up workforce housing aligned with major employers so that folks can get to work in a fashion that benefits the environment, is convenient to them, and is an added perk as part of their employment.
It sounds good. One of the issues also about transportation was, I mean, you see Community Hospital provides buses for their employees, and they give them a meal ticket, I believe, if they leave their car at home and ride the bus.
Sure.
And I think it's a great thing for large employers. If there was something that maybe Pebble Beach Company could do,
Sure.
or I don't know. I say that because I've worked
Yeah,
in
yeah.
transportation
Sure, sure.
with
Yeah, that's right.
with,
I know,
with the Pebble Beach Company,
Yeah,
and why not?
Yep.
That would be such a simple,
Yep.
and it would make it easier for them as well.
Yeah,
But-
people respond to incentives, and the county supervisor can play a real strong role in a variety of circles to help shape the region in a way that traffic is addressed, housing is addressed, employment is addressed. As a business owner and as a candidate with 14 plus years of elected office, where real solutions have been put in place on housing and homelessness and the environment and jobs, at the regional level, it just gets better. And more importantly than anything, I'm passionate about it.
Right.
When you can align passion and resources alongside qualified background, education, everything, it works.
You have all that stuff?
It works. Yeah.
Back to the homeless.
Yeah.
What's happening? Is there anything in the mill right now
Sure.
as far as the home? We have, people are the homeless number is growing.
Yeah.
Because so many people truly care.
Yeah.
And you go around in organizations, Rotary clubs,
we've helped.
churches, they're all willing to help, and the weather is nice here, so
Sure.
people come here.
Yeah.
They're not going to Minnesota and sleeping on the streets.
Yep.
They're coming to places like Monterey or Seaside or San Francisco,
Yeah.
and it's a problem. The numbers are growing, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of it could be a mental health issue, drug issues.
That's right. Yeah.
We deal with the people from iHelp, and I know that
That's right.
there's women that we feed
That we know,
they're living in their cars.
Yeah.
They can't afford rent.
Sure.
They could have been divorced or just lost their job, or like when I went to this one meeting, they had 4 women over 80 years of age who were living in their cars.
That's right. Yeah.
And what can we do?
Homelessness is one of our most pressing issues. And as a city councilman, I have helped to implement a lot of solutions. For one, we've built more, as I would put it, housing that is available to seniors and to those that are literally just coming off the street than any other municipality in the county. We've gone aggressively allocating funds towards a shelter that's been in existence now 6 years in the city limits. We are working with the county to build a permanent shelter. We've also invested in some pretty awesome nonprofit projects. One that I'll highlight is called Downtown Streets Team. There's hundreds of homeless that are now participating in their programs where they reward homeless that are aiding other homeless when it comes to diagnosis and mental health assessments. And in return, they benefit from cell phone access, housing vouchers, food, and other benefits. This idea that there's a reward for reintegration. And that self-help model has just been fantastic in other cities, and it's really making a difference. There's also efforts that I've been involved with. I'm leading an effort for homelessness along the Union Pacific right-of-way, and those sorts of challenges alongside food safety and theft. At the end of the day, it's not just one solution, it's a multitude of solutions. It's someone that can network and create relationships across business, nonprofits, and government to bring about diagnosis and housing, stability. Housing first is a solution that I strongly believe in. get someone housed, and then you can aid in diagnosis and you can aid in assistance so that they can reintegrate. Homelessness is one of the priorities of my campaign for county supervisor. The county plays a lead role in homelessness, and it's something I'm going to work hard to resolve alongside cities like Seaside and Marina and Salinas in the region.
I like that. There's a women's group in Monterey. Gathering for Women.
Yep.
And they do that. They're helping getting women services and knowledge and clothed properly and trained to go out and apply for jobs and re-enter into society. And I know that I spoke to somebody a short time ago, and they were having some success doing that.
Yeah.
And I, so traffic. What's happening? Talk to me about traffic.
Gosh.
We talked a little bit about it, but
yeah, there's a lot to be said about transportation and traffic. There's a number of things I can say. For one, we need to be thinking about other ways to get people from point A to point B. I think about the way that cities were laid out just 20, 30 years ago. Everything was designed around the car.
Right.
And I really believe in my core that we need to incentivize design around people. Accessibility to services, to food, to entertainment. So I do want to put city centers first. This idea that cities know best and can do best with incentives from the county to develop around transportation, jobs, and city centers. When it comes to traffic getting from, say, the valley to the peninsula and back, we definitely need to invest.
Right.
And we are. Measure X is a effort that I supported. It's a local tax that matches state and federal dollars in a very collaborative regional way to address backups on 68, backups on Highway 1 and 156. Active on the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments Board, I've been very involved for nearly 10 years when it comes to planning of jobs and housing and transportation infrastructure in the region. So no, from a planning perspective, I'm ready to balance that. I do believe our infrastructure needs investment. Fortunately, Measure X dollars are there to address that, whether it's the widening of IMGN or improvements to 68 to get people from one end to the other faster. But I can't ignore multimodal access to transportation. That includes bicycling, walking, making sure that more than just cars are taking it into consideration. I've already mentioned, and I'm happy to mention, that I'm very active in the van pool effort.
Right.
The idea that whether it's major employers and workforce housing that work together to get employees from their place of residence to the job site together to save in the environment, save in the pocketbook, and save on the roads when it comes to traffic, I do believe more can be done when it comes to shared rides and incentivizing that at the county level. There's no doubt that there's a lot of people, limited roads.
Kind of a mass transportation, even if it's a bus. I mean, I guess they're not going to do a train, but or some way to get people before they get to the was it 156?
Yes.
Before they get there, if there was a place where people could park out there
and then
somewhere,
take a light rail,
and then take a light rail or something into
Yeah.
But of course, Monterey is spread out. It doesn't go straight up like in San Francisco. You can unload a train and everybody goes into one building.
Yep.
Where here people are going,
multiple places.
So I know it's not easy, but is there something? Has that been talked about, or?
I'm a big supporter of rail.
Right.
I do believe that rail, as it's been invested in Europe, could be put to work in our region, specifically for tourism more than anything. I mean, the thousands of cars during the spring, summer, and fall that come down from
Friday,
San
Saturday,
Jose
Sunday.
for a weekend, exactly.
Yeah.
Or when there's a major event at Laguna Seca or at Pebble Beach. That sort of solution when it comes to repurposing the railway that was in place up until 20 years ago,
Right.
whether it's light rail or rail service into the Monterey Peninsula or rail into Salinas, both solutions present or provide an alternative. And so as a county supervisor, I'm really going to put an effort to move those initiatives forward. Now, we need to think creatively. It may not be rail. It may be a bus lane.
Right.
It may be an expressway for just bus or mass transit in other forms or fashions.
Rail is expensive.
Rail is expensive, but
Right.
Thinking aggressively for alternatives is something we need.
Right. Well, you've been in Salinas for a long time. Ag tech. What's going on with? I mean, I know that they're really on the cutting edge.
Sure.
They really are. They're working so hard because they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, is there something that the county can do, or the county is doing, to further the progress of ag tech?
We have a high percentage of people living in Marina, Seaside, and Salinas that work in the fields. The truth is, real wage growth in field work just hasn't happened.
No.
So we need to think beyond that. Certainly, as the number of workers that are available is diminishing. So we're capitalizing on that, and I can take credit for a leadership role in developing what's known as the ag tech ecosystem. So these are investments at the elementary school level for hackathons. I'm proud to say I supported the Seaside High robotics team, the Monterey High robotics team, the Salinas High robotics team. These efforts to get youngsters involved in technology at a young age, and then applying that to local challenges in technology as it relates to agriculture has been tremendously successful. More than 50 businesses are residents in what's known as the Western Growers Center for Innovation in downtown Salinas.
Oh.
Many of those businesses have spun off to form more active and robust businesses with dozen or more employees solving issues when it comes to remote sensing, harvesting, water, and precision agriculture. This idea that we have entrepreneurship challenges hosted and co-hosted with CSUMB, where there's financial rewards or access to capital for a new business idea. These sorts of things as part of what's known as the ag tech ecosystem is already working, and at the regional level and with support from the county could even grow and provide opportunity and better paying jobs to people in the region. I'm the founder of the Salinas Valley Ag Tech Summit.
Oh.
In its 6th year now, it's thousands of people that we've impacted and influenced in the region to think differently on how agricultural functions. And there's real opportunity in that.
Ag is so big, in our area for sure.
Yeah.
But what about other growth, other business growth? Here we're right along Highway 101.
Yeah.
We have a rail line that goes right through. Is there anything else that we can bring here? We do need growth. I mean, of course, where does the land come from? Does it come from ag? I mean, you would know that. I don't.
Yeah.
But what do? The more services that we need and require, the more money we're going to need.
Sure.
And the money comes from business.
Yep.
And you can't just start tapping everybody a few more bucks. You have to figure out a way how to grow business. What is your thought about that?
We need to diversify our local
Yes.
economy. The county supervisor can play a role in moving that forward. I've been very active in the One Stop Career Center, very active in the Workforce Investment Board at the county level. These are some of the tools we have to move job training and job resources in a way that the region benefits. A couple of things I'll say. One, I've been a big supporter of a College of Engineering at CSUMB. I will really work to make that happen as a county supervisor. I'm also a big fan of doing something at the former Fort Ord. There's more than 1,000 acres that are earmarked for business development. There's water, there's resources. We need a priority on attracting businesses that align with our local values. Nobody's thought about that, or if they have, they certainly haven't worked hard enough to produce results.
What type of businesses can...
So I look to the north, high tech. San Jose and Silicon Valley is admired on the planet
Right.
when it comes to innovation and business development. Tapping into the right businesses and opening our arms to those sorts of businesses that could locate on the peninsula is this first start. Making sure that they're aligned with our values could open doors to local residents and ultimately higher paying jobs. And there's something to be said about the magic of new industries and innovation paired with a university and a young,
Right.
willing, and able workforce. I'm going to be a supervisor that puts a high priority on job creation, innovation, and diversifying our local economy.
We also need to make it easier for businesses to go through the permitting process. I mean, I've spoken to a couple people that said after 3 or 4 years they're done.
Yeah.
They're not. They don't want to. It's the cost of doing the permitting process is just too great, and so why?
I'm proud to take credit for some of the most aggressive reform in the permitting and planning department in the city of Salinas in its history. In 10 years, we have turned things over to the point where not only is there data collected and it's measurable, but the throughput of permits and the wait times have all been improved. That sort of priority needs to be placed on the County of Monterey. It should be easy to start a business. It should be easy to access permitting online on your own schedule in such a way that we can move forward. We need to change the culture in the region such that government supports innovation and what the priorities are when it comes to housing, both building and remodeling, and when it comes to job creation. I'm the type of proven leader that can deliver on those things, not just in District 4, but countywide.
Now, how about ecology or I shouldn't say global warming. It's not that anymore. Now it's climate change. And I don't know what it'll be called next, but whatever. I mean, I think everybody needs to be concerned about what's going on in our world. I mean, we only have one world. To the extent of are we responsible for it or not? I mean, that's an issue. But what do you I know this is more of a national but it should be everybody's issue. It should be the issue of every home. What's your feeling on that?
I'm an environmentalist, and I believe it's everyone's responsibility to leave the planet, starting with our local community, in better shape than when we received it. That's been challenging. Human beings have had an impact on the globe. There's no doubt about it. There's every scientist out there that will confirm that. So taking actions as a policymaker to aid in remedying some of our biggest issues have been a priority. As a member of Monterey Bay Community Power, we have begun the process of moving towards green energy, local jobs aligned with that. As a member of the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments and chair of that organization, aligning jobs and residency, together, so that the time spent out on the road is lessened. 70% of our greenhouse gas issues come from transportation. So we really got to look at that. It's not just the fact that I own an electric vehicle or that I've got solar on my home with battery. We need to make that accessible to as many people as possible so that the impact on the environment is less. I think that there is a balance between people and the environment, and I'm going to work hard as a policymaker to bring to bear just that.
I don't think people realize the gravity of course, the amount that is caused by humans. I mean, years ago we had, the world was covered with ice.
Sure.
And so it wasn't like the cars and airplanes and things from 2 million years ago started causing this all. I mean, it's just part of the cycle of the planet. But I do agree that we do need, and I don't think people take it as seriously as they should.
Yeah.
and so that's
We're busy.
well, when you're too busy for that, it's like too busy for your kids. You know, you can't.
Well
you're
said.
never too busy for. You know, you're never.
Yeah.
There's things you should never be too busy for. It should be a tourism in Monterey County. I mean, what's happening with that?
Well, I believe that we need to remember that our two greatest economic engines are agriculture and tourism. And when I think of District 4 and I think of Seaside and Marina, boy, they've just been passed over when it comes to that tourism dollar. You know, I support an investment in Seaside that includes something other than a golf course or a fast food restaurant. There's got to be, you know, opportunity for, you know, a museum that may tie in the military community. I mean, there's been talk about establishing a Fort Ord museum and investment in cultural and history. I also think when I consider Marina, man, there's just every car that drives right by that could be an opportunity to, say, spend the night. You know, there could be more investment in hotel and overnight accommodations. I do believe that Laguna Seca has been a treasure that the county owns, the county operates, and the county could do more to leverage that. It's one of the most famous racetracks in the world. So I plan to do what I can to support tourism, to make sure that tourism is in alignment with our local values, so that people that live here aren't, say, totally inconvenienced by it or hating everybody that visits, but rather embracing it. I'm going to facilitate that sort of set of relationships.
What can we do for Laguna Seca? What type of thing? Is there something that we can? I mean, I know that it seems like it's working fairly well right now, but it could be so much greater. I think, and we've spoken about that locally because our Rotary Club has worked at Laguna Seca since the 80s. And
Laguna Seca is one of the greatest opportunities when it comes to tourism and hospitality locally. We're talking about a world-class track that has 60 or more years worth of history, where some of the greatest racers and some of the greatest car aficionados have been there. Not to mention major events, not just for the region, but of greater significance.
the Pope was there.
The Pope was there. Obviously, we need to take into account people that live near or by Laguna Seca, but the county needs to look toward ways that we can get more investment and use out of that facility to benefit tourism in a way that aligns with our local values. As county supervisor representing a portion of Laguna Seca, I'm going to work hard to see to it that Laguna Seca moves forward.
Has there ever been any talk about a hotel out there with for the racing school?
Yeah, there's been numerous proposals over the years to include investments like you wouldn't believe. I think the county can do more out there. I really do.
Good. Yeah, we've talked a lot. Some of the questions I asked are just off the top of my head or whatever. But you know, what is it that you'd like to? Is there anything special you'd like to really convey to people who will watch this?
Sure. Well, I'm a high-energy guy that
kidding.
loves to get people involved.
Right.
And I think that county government does better with more people engaged. My campaign's been very much about sitting down and listening. We've been in people's homes. We've been at local businesses. We've had so many visits, and we will continue to have visits. This is an invitation to get involved. My campaign is an invitation to take more ownership in the county of Monterey. So I definitely would encourage people to visit my website, to contact me personally on my cell phone, to be a part of something greater for the region. It's the only way that we move forward. We need to have more people involved.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay.